week's episode of the Lifting the Veil podcast. Myself, your host, Adrienne Lopez, the Integrative Healing Coach. Thank you for joining me today for soul healing conversations, guests, and topics that support you in unveiling the nature of your true consciousness so you can embrace your destiny and not suffer your fate. If you hear something today that resonates with you, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and or subscribe, as it really helps support the growth and reach of this podcast by increasing our listenership, which makes this whole endeavor possible. In the meantime, please sit back and relax as we get ready for this week's episode on the topic of collective resonance and on the next tier of human evolution. We'll get started in just a moment.
Hello, beautiful soul family. I'm here today to share with you some solstice reflections. We have the summer solstice coming on June the 21st in just a couple of days. We also have a Capricorn new moon coming up. I'm not sure if it falls on the solstice or not. I'd have to double check. I'd have to go check my notes, but if you know, let me know. Put it in the comments and let me know what is on your horizon, on your dashboard, what's showing up for you right now in these energies. Today I wanted to share with you about this shift that is emerging from an individual perspective of I or me to a more inclusive perspective of we, and what becomes possible when we're able to shift perspectives. And this is really where a lot of richness becomes available. There's this largely unaware assumption for many people that we have this isolated I, and that the way we see the world is the way the world really is. We also have collective agreements about how to see the world in the cultural field. Now, many of us have had conflicts with people around us from time to time who have different worldviews, and there's an arguing or a attempt to manipulate or persuade someone to see things perhaps the way that we do. And there's this holding on to the ego, or the ego's holding on to a certain perspective that somehow I can't have more than one. There's only one right one, and it's mine. And so this has led to a lot of poverty in our beingness. And I want to say more about this, like why is this leading to poverty in our beingness, and what becomes possible when we start expanding or being able to hold more than one perspective at the same time. And it's an invitation to a more abundant, accessing more abundance. And so the ego has this idea that if I hold on to this one perspective, I'll be right, I'll be safe, I'll have certainty, and maybe some safety, continuity, and strength in that. And that's a beautiful thing. But what happens is when we move from this monolithic or myopic perspective, and we begin to be able to hold multiple perspectives at one time, there's a openness to abundance of human resource that we didn't have available. And what I mean is that each individual perspective holds some riches, it holds some possibilities, and that when we cut ourselves off from different perspectives, we're cutting our access off to the abundant possibilities that can unfold at a rapid pace when we are open and we don't have to cut things off or cut things down into a smaller range of experience. And so when I'm working with people through the alchemy work or through the life mentorships that I do, it's mostly around, what I'm saying is that this is not approached through having to fix, change, or heal anyone. It's more like a realization that it's an invitation, let's say, to begin to hold more in our awareness. And as we begin to hold more in our awareness, more becomes available. And that we are actually seeing outside of us what we're holding onto, our worldview. It actually shapes our experience or helps shape our experience out in the world. So what happens when we're able to hold more than one perspective, we begin to have more than one possibility available. And this is like mining for gold. It is true human resource. And it is available through our ability to observe our own perspective of how we're viewing ourselves and the world. Now we have the self that we have curated, whether we're aware of it or not. From a very young age, we've had lots of help from the people around us, our society, our schools, our friendships, that have helped to reinforce this collection, which I call the matrix of the self, which is a collection of ideas, self-concepts that are attached to energetic signatures, emotions, traumas, high vibration, low vibration, and everything in between. It is a range of experience that has been identified and you've associated as you, as an identity. But when you begin to open your awareness to more possibility and expansive perceptions that are so changing from a monolithic perspective to a multiple perspective, then more life energy becomes available online, more possibilities begin to unfold, and this is where the miracles begin to happen. And so really the question is how open and willing am I to receive miracles, unprecedented occurrences in my life? And not because anything outside of me changed, but because I was willing to shift my, let's say, grip on my sureness that the world is only this way. And that when my ego is able to soften and feel secure enough that there's some higher intelligence that actually created it, and that it is a creation, and the creator, which is the biggest missing part of the picture for most personalities, then we begin to occupy a more expansive space for our being, one that is not hemmed in or restricted through these very hard-won survival views of the world. And so, like I've said before, that this new tier of our evolution is happening, that's happening, will not be an individual one. It will be happening through the space in between us, through the space of our minds and our hearts. And we'll see that the space in between us is infinitely creative, and it holds the morphogenetic fields of possibility, and that we were created to interact and actively create with life. instead of being at a result of life, and that we can have a much more juicy, expansive, loving, connected experience. And that, as I mentioned, that this next tier of evolution is going to happen through our awareness of a new vantage point. So we are being invited to still have our ego personality, but it's no longer the only option. It's one out of the multitude. And when we begin to shift a perspective from the I, me, to the we, all the resource that we've been closing ourselves off from becomes available. And on another level, it begins to start unhooking everything that's been left circling in the escrow account. Now, you may have heard this term escrow account from Esther and Jerry Higgs, the famous manifesting couple who have written lots of books and spoken on lots of different topics around manifesting. Now, it has occurred to me that this field of what she's calling an escrow account is actually all the places in our life energy where we invested ourselves, but there was no listening to receive it, either in ourselves or others. And so it got put in outside of this 3D physical field, and it just keeps spinning. The energy doesn't go anywhere. It's just waiting to plug in. And it can't plug in until we're available to hold it. And how do we become available to hold this escrow energy that has been waiting for us? And this really comes down to healing. And for lack of a better word, healing means remembering one's wholeness that has always ever been available, but because of our conditioning that whittles us down into a personality, we have forgotten. And now we're in the process of remembering the beauty and the grandeur of creation and our place in it. And as we do, we're going to have to dissolve the crystallized or calcified aspects of our personality that have kept us from a experience, aka timeline, of that abundant, rich receiving of love, of resource, of whatever it was that you were craving, that your personality believed that it couldn't have, and so created a defense mechanism that actually keeps it out instead of creating a pathway to receive it. And so the personality is waking up to something beyond itself, which it doesn't understand because it's not from there. And there is a gentle invitation to begin to step into this new emergent field of consciousness. At least that's what I'm calling it. And as we do, then our perspective begins to be able to access a new way of being. And as we access this new way of being, a new reality can't help but emerge with it. And as we do this, we'll automatically realize how deeply connected we are. And this is the last piece that I want to share with you today. It's around the masculine and feminine energies that have been expressed through the feminine and masculine in the physical body, but it's much more refined than that. The feminine and masculine are the two ingredients of creation here in this physical world. And what is occurring is that just like a hand, once you have a hand, you automatically have two sides. That's duality. And it's part of the definition of being here in this 3D world. And so when we begin to realize that, we'll see that all of the artificial partitions and polarities are actually just a way of categorizing the whole that exists. And more specifically with the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the creation energies, we see that as soon as we have masculinity, we automatically have femininity. They exist here together. Unfortunately, we've been given a lot of bad or incorrect programming that we can have one without the other, which is not true. And so what happens is that our consciousness begins to expand large enough to begin to realize that the feminine is always on the other side of the masculine, and the masculine is always on the other side of the feminine. And once we know this, then we can start beginning to integrate this awareness into our physical body, and then of course into our reality and our experience of life. And what happens is a realization, a slow awakening of how these energies have not been serving one another, but they've actually been exiling one another, rejecting one another because of all the wounding around the heart. And as our heart begins to be able to receive the fullness of the love of these two unified energies that have always been working together, have never been at odds. It's only us that have been conditioned to believe with imprints that direction, protection, penetration, order, discipline is somehow in conflict with joy, inspiration, unconditional, overflowing love, gentleness, opening, peace. That somehow these were in conflict and not actually in cooperation. And there is a reconciliation that is happening. And the reconciliation is between these two energies, and it's happening in our physiology. It's happening in our body. It's happening in our souls. And I'll give you a more concrete example of this, how this might be happening in your experience, even though your conscious mind may not even be able to fathom or be aware of it. So I'd like you to imagine that you have two parts of yourself that are unaware of each other. You have the mind with its thoughts and its narrations and its stories and its imprints. And then you have the result of that, which is the physiology, the emotional imprints, the emotions, the somatic experience in the body, and these are wedded together unknowingly. The mind thinks that the feminine has been a detriment, that it keeps trying to run away from, get away from, exclude or exile itself from, because it didn't know how to hold that part of its own nature. And our whole culture that is flashed across screens at this moment is a product of inability to recognize and receive the nature of ourselves. And so what happens is that we are living this inside of our body, a constant rejection, exile, and pull that is just waiting for us to come home to the harmony, the love, the abundance that becomes possible when these two polarities come and find equilibrium, peace, collaboration, connection, and really love, because that's where they come from. And so there's this gentleness that we can invite in to begin to hold our mind with compassion, forgiveness, kindness for its misperception of its true nature. And that is the gift of the feminine. And the masculine can begin to create space for the feminine to start taking up presence and space instead of trying to push her away and instead of trying to push her down, and welcome her and all of the value and beauty and essence and meaning that she has brought constantly to the mind, and how much she's been rejected and pushed down and ignored and devalued. And there's this beautiful coming together in this realization of the unique gifts that both aspects of our nature have, and that they're both essential to our being and our health and our well-being, and that we can't have one without the other, and we never could. We just had the illusion that somehow they were separate. And what's happening now is we're being invited, if we're open, to create the reception hall for these two parts of ourselves, to honor, to love, to forgive, to accept, and to find a way to collaborate in a life-affirming way. And this means for many of us that we will have to take on new ways of being that perhaps we haven't even imagined about how we can embody them. And this means that the divine masculine gets to learn patience. It gets to learn restraint. It gets to learn the strength in gentleness. It gets to learn the power and respect of the fundamental life energy that the feminine holds. And when this awareness begins to dawn on the masculine, like a new day, a new existence becomes possible, and a new day will dawn on consciousness itself. And when the feminine can release the masculine from being aggressive, fierce, pushy, dominant, hiding its vulnerable heart, having to be tough, having to be untouchable, and begins to hold respect and space for him in one's own consciousness, that part of us that believes all of that, that we have to hide, that we have to be tough, that we have to be untouchable. Then there is a updated agreement that begins to happen in our physiology, and it takes practice. This is downloading a whole new way of being in our nervous system and our body that we haven't tried on as a collective, and we're going to need places to practice. We're going to need places to actually not talk about it, not think about it, but actually embody it and bring it to life through our body, through our interactions, So when I come to you and we have a conflict, or we have an upset, or we have some hurt feelings that may have brought with me from times past, that I am able to bring all of my resource online, not just my incredible loving softness, but also my protective, wise guide that can help me hold that and take responsibility for that. So I'm not having to continually project my hurts and upsets on you or the people outside of me, like something's happening to me, somebody's doing something to me. Instead, I begin to take full ownership of my own creative power like never before. And the more and more that we do this, the more and more we become able to access all of that uncovered, for lack of the better word, shadow, darkness, mud, right? That's what we'll be growing out of. And that darkness, that undiscovered shadow is the fuel that will be burnt in this transformation. And this is the definition of alchemy, which we've heard about throughout the ages. And so I can't think of any other work that's more important than this work. And I'm realizing now more than ever that this is my work, and this is why I came to this planet, was to share this with you. And so I am beginning a practice circle called Collective Resonance Practice Circles. And I'm going to be doing one live every month at the Healing House Temple here where I live. And I'm also going to be doing one online for people that do not have access to coming to a live event. And I'm super excited and enlivened by the possibility of sharing the tools and the practices and the communal space for people to try on these new tools that are now available, like never before, to create a greater sense of freedom, self-expression, creativity, connection, love. So many people that I talk to feel like they have to carry the burden of this life alone. They feel isolated. They feel helpless. They feel out of control. They're worried about the future, and they're not sure why they should even bother, because they don't feel like who they are or what they're doing has an impact on the world today. And I'm here to tell you, everything that you are and everything that you do is so impactful. And it becomes times 10, times 100 when you begin to do it in a way that allows you to come into balance between these two forces of creation that are your birthright and your gift. And so it's a laboratory, an exploration, a kindergarten, let's say, for trying on these tools. And of course, there'll be practice, and practice includes finding your middle ground. It's a product of making mistakes, of going too far or not going far enough to create contrast. So you can try on these tools and see how they're actually working, and then take them out into your life, into spaces that may not actually have this awareness yet. And this is how this tier of evolution is going to happen. It's going to happen with us, with everyone. That's the only place that it's going to happen. And we still have this mindset of the I and the me that wants to create it in isolation. And it's not going to work that way. That is a old way. It's an old energetic. We still get to keep our I self, but we get to reimagine the construction of it as in connection to others. I only experience myself through you. You are what makes my experience possible. And we began to see this in the relationship of the divine masculine and divine feminine. There is no one without the other. They automatically exist together. And if we do not learn the ways to cooperate, to bring both of these beautiful energies together in balance, in partnership, then we will continue to experience all the conflict we see outside of us. And it's consciousness asking itself to awaken. And that's what I'm here to invite you in, is the process of awakening. Nothing's wrong. You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. You're simply remembering the expanse of who you are. And as you do, lots of things are going to shift and change, and you're going to be able to begin relating to yourself in a wholesome way that recognizes your goodness and your innocence, and not only yours, but how that's reflected in everyone around you. And how that most of what we're experiencing as bad or evil or hurtful is a dirty mirror. It's a dirty mirror based on misperceptions, distortions, and a lack of knowing who we really are. So this is an invitation to remembering the resonance of love. And the resonance of love is what happens when the divine masculine and divine feminine come online in partnership. And I'm not talking about gender here. I'm talking about life energies. And of course they get expressed through people, through their physiology, through their sexuality. But all of us hold both of these. And there are two aspects of creation. And we're being given a huge invitation to remember how to yield these powerful tools to create our world in a way that's life-affirming, in a way that creates inclusion, belonging, and freedom all at the same time. All right, just so you know, the first live circle is happening this Thursday, June the 20th, at my home, and you can register through the event page on Facebook or through Meetup. I'll put the link in the description of this share today. And if you have any questions, you can reach out in the comments or through direct message and ask away. There is a small fee for participating. It's a sliding scale from $11 to $22. And that just helps me compensate myself for my time and the preparation it takes to create circles like this. So without any more to say for now, I invite you to check it out. Let me know if you're interested in participating either on land or online. I would love to have you there as part of this community of what I'm calling as collective resonance, or remembering of our collective resonance. And yes, so I'm excited to have you, excited to have conversations about how we can bring more and more of this resonance online. And until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are, and bye for now.